Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Welcome very much. We're very happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us today. Amb ella ens endinsarem, com us deia, en els límits de la IA d'avui i analitzarem el posicionament d'Europa en la cursa mundial per liderar aquesta tecnologia. I abans de cedir-li, I'm sure you're learning Catalan right now. I'm not sure if you...
Trying hard.
Yeah, great. I was just saying what you were going to talk about, but just explaining that before you start with your session, we'll have the ability, or people will be able to ask some questions so that we can afterwards share them with you. El que li deia bàsicament és que tindrem una aplicació, es diu Slido, la veureu per aquí, apareixerà en algun moment un QR, aquest Slido, si l'escanegeu, al final de la seva intervenció li podrem traslladar les preguntes que ens compartiu per ella. I podeu posar a les preguntes el vostre nom, el vostre càrrec, el vostre sector si creieu que és rellevant per la pregunta. Si sou tímids o tímides, podeu fer-ho anònimament, no direm qui sou, no passa res, no serà dolorós, i per tant li traslladarem totes aquestes preguntes. Basically, the audience will be just sharing some of the questions. We'll try to pick up 2 or 3 so that at the end of your amazing session we can share them with you. So, Vanessa, the floor is yours. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks.
Gracias. And bon dia, it's really great to be here in this beautiful state. Thank you for having me. It's a huge honor to be speaking to all of you on one of my absolute favorite topics that I'm sure is also moving you a lot at the moment, artificial intelligence, and we'll also talk about all that it has to do with data, because we cannot speak about artificial intelligence if we do not speak about data. I usually like to start looking into the future by looking into the history, because we can learn an awful lot about what we're actually seeing in this huge revolution of AI, looking at the past. There's kind of 3 different patterns that we've seen throughout the history, even looking back to the time when we were discussing textiles, water powers came into being, the Iron Age, so long back, 1785. One is that when we talk about innovation, we always talk about a load of failure. Innovation always goes hand in hand with a lot of innovators, entrepreneurs, discovering new things and actually failing on the way. When you look back, for example, the first motors were actually discovered by a load of entrepreneurs trying out water power, trying out energy, and it all didn't work out the way they hoped it would until the combustion engine came into being and really redesigned the way we move today with cars, right? So this is something that's a pattern that we're also seeing in the world of AI. We're seeing a load of entrepreneurs right now discovering what we can actually do, what we can actually develop with AI, and are failing on the way. When you look at the lists of Google's products, Amazon products, which usually as Europeans we look at with very, very bright eyes, the list of products that didn't work out, that we don't even remember anymore, is way longer than the one we do remember, and products we love working with today. Also, when we're talking about history, then one pattern also becomes obvious, that people are very cautious and think that this might actually just be a hype and not a revolution we're looking into. So when you look at IBM, Thomas Watson, he was kind of the former managing director, one of the first CEOs that IBM ever had. He actually once said he thinks there's a market for 5 computers in the world. When we look today, right, there's more computers in the world than people. And this is a pattern that's also very contagious throughout history. So a lot of caution, people, society, also businesses that think, okay, maybe we can just sit this one out. No, with AI, we cannot sit this one out. It's a huge revolution. It's changing everything. And also, when we look at the prices, and I'm sure some of you might be using Agentic AI products, for example, that are coming off the shelf, basically, today, that are being hyped by companies like Salesforce, SAP, and looking at the prices and thinking, oh my goodness, this is so expensive. This is also a pattern that's very obvious throughout history. So we're seeing that new breakthroughs, they're usually very, very expensive until they become cheap over time because we as masses are continuously using them. And now we're kind of with 2 feet in the 6th wave of our kind of technological revolution of humankind, the wave of generative AI, hyper-automation, and robotics. And all these patterns, they're becoming apparent, but there's also a couple of things that are different this time. One of which, and you might notice this when you look at these waves, the speed of things is just dramatically higher than anything we've seen actually in the past, right? So when you look back at steam and rail, this is something that went on for generations, where generations had the possibility to actually catch on and be part of this. With AI, it feels like it's overwhelming because things are changing and things are happening so fast. So change and speed is something that's dramatically different this time. We're talking sometimes about weeks, even months, or if much, kind of years. So the question is kind of how long will actually this next wave of technology last? Might it be like the internet revolution, kind of 30 years, or might it be even shorter? Because these distances between these waves of technological revolution, they've dramatically shortened over time, and we're feeling this increased speed heavily when it comes to AI. The second thing is also when it comes to disruption of society, disruption of our economy. The wave of disruption AI is bringing and how much it's changing is similar to what we've seen kind of with the Industrial Revolution. So things are very different when it comes to disruption. And one thing I would like to kind of press on in the course of kind of the next half an hour is also the aspect of trust. So with AI, we have a black box system. So often we do not know how AI has actually come to the conclusion, and a conclusion we might be inclined to follow. So this is something that's very different too. We have to kind of trust, we have to believe in a much higher scope in the output that AI is generating without actually knowing how it's come to this conclusion. Speaking about speed, I love this graphic because it kind of shows how fast things are evolving. So there's basically no skill when you look at it, from real-time speech to image and video generation, language understanding, now even to software engineering, where AI is not at the level of human skill today, even kind of reaching the top 1% of what we're seeing. So software engineering is, for example, something that came up only over the course of the last 2 years. There's close to no software engineer on Earth that today is not using AI for coding. And we're seeing that 99.9%, so really 99.9% of software engineers are being beaten by AI on classical software engineering benchmarks. So AI is kind of as good as 99.9%, only 1% kind of still tackling and beating AI on this skill, and that's changing things radically. Also, and this is one thing I would like to kind of focus on today, is also that we're talking a lot about AI, and especially Gen AI, not being only kind of an information engine for us anymore, but the complexity of tasks is kind of growing, and it's been growing over time, now enabling us to give out tasks that have previously been difficult to actually automate. So the failure rates are not going up. We're now talking more about automating very complex tasks, and even in the future orchestrating a huge amount of our tasks. And what I mean with this, I thought, okay, what's kind of one use case that probably everyone in this room might be interested in understanding? And what I came up with is, okay, we probably all want to know how AI can help us become rich overnight. So this is what we're going to look at in this example. It's very placative, of course, so I'm sure you'll have questions afterwards saying, okay, well, if we all use AI for innovation now, will this still be innovation? Won't the AI kind of come to the same output? But I think this example kind of demonstrates in which direction AI is going when we're speaking about agentic AI. So how we used Gen AI tools like ChatGPT in the past was to gather information, right? So we could give me free ideas for new products I can sell on Amazon. It would look similar like this, and actually this is a real world example. So this is what ChatGPT kind of came up with here. It said, hey, look, here's free quick product ideas you could sell on Amazon. Came up with a smart pill organizer that you might need, a portable standing desk converter, a magnetic cable organizer, all ideas that might sell on Amazon. So what did I do here? I gave in a prompt, an input, and it used kind of the information on the internet to retrieve its information and gave me this output in a way that kind of correlated with my input and what I asked for, the format I asked for. Of course, what a lot of companies now do is kind of this retrieval loop is often matched with own data, right? So you all have data within your organization that might make our input a bit different. So if you're working in a pharmaceutical company, for example, you might want products that are focused more on kind of what you're working on, your products, and give you information on this part. But basically, the way LLMs had worked in the past was very similar in this very, very kind of classical way of an input retrieving from a database and giving you an output. Now with AI agents, we can think even a step further and have processes automated that were so far too complex to actually automate. So we could go even a step further, not only using AI as an information engine to give us a couple of ideas of products, but actually even creating descriptions, also creating images and posting these on Amazon. So what would it do here? You would have the input. The orchestrator agent would think about, okay, who do I have to include? It's always the same ones. It's always an LLM that's focusing on creating descriptions and is perfected in this, is specialized on just creating Amazon descriptions, and also one agent that's specialized on creating images. Then you have kind of the images and descriptions, they're posted and published on Amazon, so they're going live. You can, of course, think this more in the direction of transparency, so we don't want to give all of this out in like one step and workflow, so that we find our product that we even haven't seen before on Amazon, right? So it might kind of give you an idea of, look, this is what I worked on. Is this going in the right direction? Do you want to check anything? Do you want to correct anything before I publish this? But still, what we're talking about when we're talking about agents today is kind of a very deterministic approach to things. So the task is always a very similar one. You always have kind of step-for-step processes that kind of go into each other, and the flow is always the very, very same way. So basically, when you think about a process that you're working on today, where you can sketch it out in kind of on a white canvas and saying, okay, one step follows the other, then this is something that's usually well to automate today. Looking into kind of the future and what a lot of very smart people are working on today is kind of the idea of an orchestration. So a very complex task where you would, when you think about it, have a load of different tasks to do, right? So if we really would have a chatbot that we could give this task to, so go make €1 million on Amazon in just a few months with 100,000 investments. When you think about it, it's like a whole load of tasks an AI would have to do, or our team would have to do if we would set like a human team on it. So one would have to kind of research, okay, what are the products that are trending today? A second one would have to become a specialist in the Amazon marketplace and understand, okay, what are kind of the algorithms behind it? How do I play the Amazon marketplace to really have my product go trending and be searched and found by our clients? We would have kind of an agent specialized on creating product images that would look fancy and our clients would like to see. And then, of course, the entire manufacturing process would mean we would have to kind of send an email to a dropship manufacturer, find one on Alibaba first, email back and forth when it comes to requirements. We would have to agree on a contract on what does this manufacturer actually ship to us. Then we have to approach things like design listings on Amazon so that we know exactly how to outline this on Amazon, how it's being displayed, update our marketing materials with each spec and feature we're adding to this product. And of course, we might want to look through all the comments below our kind of Amazon product to see, okay, how did clients react to it? Are there any requests for changes that we might want to kind of continuously redesign and improve our product, right? So it's quite a long list of things, and if you think about it, you do run into a lot of kind of how do you say, kind of one-way streets. So, for example, what happens if we write someone on Alibaba, but this person or this manufacturer says, okay, I don't really have the capacity right now, you have to approach someone else. Then we run into a dead end. We have to think renewed about, okay, who do we approach next? Another manufacturer might say, okay, this is a product that doesn't really fit to us, we're the wrong person to approach. So you run into a lot of like dead ends on the way, and this is what's making this so complicated right now, because basically here what we're seeing kind of from more of a technical point of view, you're seeing all these specialized agents that we train to just become perfect on each of these tasks, one on kind of each of them. So this would be kind of similar, like you would set up a project team, just your staff and team members, they would be kind of very, very niche specialized in what they're doing. And you would have kind of a team lead, like an orchestrator and super agents that would then delegate these tasks and split up, okay, what do we actually have to do? An orchestrator thinking about, okay, I've got this task, how do I set up like a project plan, and who do I involve from my team? And this can go up to like millions of agents in the end, right? So this is where it becomes super, super complex, but this is how we, in the future, can kind of look into things, look at it more in the direction of kind of you having maybe one orchestrator agent within your company, right? That in the end has kind of from HR processes to finance processes, everything under its umbrella basically, and the access to kind of each specialist, no matter which request you kind of pull into it. And that's what's changing the environment like largely at the moment. So in the end, we're kind of coming more and more to figuring out how to actually digitalize the way we as humans think, right? So from acting to retrieving memory, we're now able to also sense, as we humans could always do and can do. We're able to learn. Language reasoning has become a huge issue. Understanding, selecting actions, selecting who to kind of involve from your team, and implementing these actions. So we're going away from just a knowledge retrieval engine to basically AI acting and thinking on our behalf. And that's the huge step we're currently seeing when we're speaking about agentic AI. The video is, okay, let me go back once. Can I? Okay, no matter. Okay, so what I did here is I tried to kind of demonstrate how we can use this today, and I'm using ChatGPT here and also Cursor to vibe code, as you'll see in a second. So what I asked is kind of, this is the deep research engine actually from ChatGPT. So you have to click deep research. And what I did is I asked it, okay, research current trends on Amazon, what products are being sold and why are they being sold, what categories work best, and so on. It came back with a couple of questions on specifying what I'm actually searching for. So which market are you interested in, which products, and so on. And now it's kind of going ahead and analyzing this and researched it for me, right? So 37 sources are currently being read and looked at. So it's searching the entire internet. And then it kind of came up with this very, very detailed research analysis. It's even kind of a bit too dense. So I asked it kind of, okay, can you give me this in just 5 tables so that I can see my business case in a second? I then switched to Cursor, which I'm using for vibe coding. So coding without one line of code. You'll see all the code written here is written by AI, and said, okay, please look at this information provided by ChatGPT, creates a HTML, so website dashboard, visualizing the report, as well as the data. Use CSS to make it look very nice, and you can see how fast kind of the code came. And I can actually even look at what did it do here. So it's giving me a sort of transparency on how it actually worked. And I then asked, okay, based on this earning potential, can you please analyze the business plan so that we get an idea, okay, how much is it really worth investing in this product? It's then also kind of giving me the code for this, showing me what it's done. And what would be perfect is kind of for us to change the growth rates, the numbers, so that we can see how this is changing actually the projection by it. So I asked it to kind of make it more interactive so that I can actually interact with this data. I'm getting the code for this too. And then it took me around 11 minutes. I got kind of this website. So this was all coded by Cursor and ChatGPT together with the input of ChatGPT. So that's where I got my research from. I can then, as I suggested and asked for, I can change the margins, the profit margins, and see how this actually affects my calculation. I can change the growth rates here and just look at, okay, how is this changing the profit projection throughout the years? So this is kind of giving me a good insight into how does my business work? Is this a way I want to go? Should I change anything in the specs of my research? Was there a flaw in it? It's just making kind of data a bit more practical to read and calculate, right, than using a simple Excel. And these are actually two of what I would say, because I'm often asked it, kind of what are the killer use cases for agentic right now? These are actually the two that I would always mention because I am using them at least every day now. So one is really using deep research. You can use it from ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on. It's kind of what's happened now with LLMs becoming better and better at reasoning, and also kind of vibe coding without using any line of code. So anything you've always kind of found astounding, looking at maybe your peers that have been coding websites, apps, and so on. Everything is just at the tip of your hands now, and you can code this just by explaining what you actually want to have designed. And this is making things just more plastic these days. So when you look at this, it's radically actually changing the global markets, and this is something that I find very promising actually, because I think over the course of the last years, we've seen that with ChatGPT, everyone has kind of invested in this field. Every company has now an AI unit and looking at what AI can do for them. But I think still, if you look at what value has been provided by AI, it's still a bit limiting because everyone has been in the last kind of 2 years' time in an experimentation phase. So we have like 100, 200 in many of the companies I look into, which are kind of major enterprises, the kind of Fortune 500 companies, they have up to 400 cases, and all of them are in somewhat kind of being trialed. And if you look at the value behind it, it's usually still quite limiting. And we'll look into that in a second, why that is the case, and what companies can do to really provide value with AI. But everyone has actually opted in to fall forward, right? So everyone is saying, okay, we're not turning back from AI, we're not saying it's not worth our investment, but actually is investing heavily in AI. So we're seeing that kind of the annual growth rates that are being projected by AI are kind of spiraling. We're seeing that VC funding has grown heavily over the last years. Globally, it's at around 100 billion investment. In Europe, it's around 8 billion investment in AI. We're seeing that Gen AI budgets have grown. They've nearly tripled, actually, since 2023, so heavy investments in Gen AI. And also that adoption rates have gone up quite a lot over the last years. In orange, what you can see here is kind of the AI adoption rate from 23 to 2024. Also, when you look at Gen AI adoption, it went up from 65% to 71%. So everyone is very much kind of falling forward and saying, okay, this is a field we have to invest in. AI is really going to be the game changer here. When you kind of think about it, it seems going forward with all this transformation happening with Agentic AI, us kind of discussing here, maybe we can become kind of millionaires over the night with AI, right? That AI is kind of reaching limitless possibilities now, and there's barely kind of nothing we cannot do. At least for me, some days it really seems that way, if you think about it. But what is becoming more and more a limit to AI is the aspect of trust. And I'd like to kind of discuss a couple of theories that I have right now that I'm seeing kind of as a huge bottleneck to AI and us actually proceeding with it in a societal and also on a client base and towards our own teammates who are also boycotting on many levels the use of AI is kind of these four spheres. So one of which I'm calling kind of the binary Big Bang. What I mean with this is kind of a lot of scientists believe in the scaling hypothesis. So the more kind of data you have, the more compute you have, and the more parameters you have, you barely kind of over time reach so-called, I just came back from Silicon Valley and it's everywhere there, AGI, so artificial general intelligence. And what it basically means is that we as humans are really kind of one-to-one matched with AI. So this is not kind of looking at singular skills we saw earlier, where we're already seeing, okay, on singular skills, AI is kind of trumping us. But this is really meaning that AI can work on the level of the human mind and combine a lot of skills as we use them as humans. And of course, thinking about AGI, and you see all this, I don't know if you read the news on this, but you see all this fight kind of going on between Meta and OpenAI these days, for example, where Meta is kind of taking the most capable people from OpenAI into their AGI unit. So this is a really open fight right now, and Silicon Valley is heavily believing that they can reach artificial general intelligence in the next couple of years' time. So the investment in this is really huge. And the question kind of comes up, who do we actually trust to deliver on this, right? Which state, which organization, because there will only be kind of a couple of players out there that can actually give us the basis of every technology that we're actually building on top of this. Similar like we're doing with large language models, where we're seeing that there's over a billion models on Hugging Face these days, but with AGI, it's kind of becoming even larger. And the question is, okay, will there only be kind of a couple of players, and who do we basically trust? A second aspect that I'm sure you're witnessing in your daily lives a lot right now is kind of we're seeing that AI has kind of met what in the 50s was described as kind of the Turing test, right? So when you interact with a chatbot these days, I don't know who of you also often has the impression, are we actually interacting with an AI, or am I interacting here with a human? at least, I feel that way quite a lot these days, where I cannot really differentiate anymore, and that's what Turing then called his Turing test. So AI has then kind of reached human intelligence if you cannot actually differentiate if you're talking and interacting with an AI or if you're interacting with a human. And I think looking at chatbots, we really reached this level already, but this doesn't only stretch in the field of chatbot. This stretches over that, right? So I think we've learned over the last couple of years that we cannot really believe the input or have to at least challenge the input we read. But now it's kind of images, it's videos that we have to reflect on, okay, how real is this? And this in globally, of course, very tense times, videos, pictures, they can easily become kind of explosives when they look as real as they are doing now. So it's really reflecting on what are we seeing and is this really real or not? And there's kind of an intersection now because it's not so easy as looking at the details, and we can then identify that a very cinematic video is not real anymore. It's just become so absolutely real. Also with physical AI, so the intersection between AI and robotics, large language models are now not only within the digital sphere, but are now becoming more and more real because we're interacting with robots that basically have the entire knowledge of the internet within them and interact with us as we are doing with chatbots today, but maybe in a humanoid body. And that's going to change things going forward because basically we're kind of in the last years of a robot-free society. I know many of you might have household robots already, like I have, doing your gardens or doing the floor, but this is really meaning that we'll see robots like in every room we enter. This is the reality we're stepping into kind of going forward in the next couple of years. And then also kind of the last point I wanted to point out is kind of what I call the new learning loop. So we've spent a load of time these last years feeding AI with our knowledge and teaching it. And now it's kind of starting to define and also teach us on which actions we're taking. And that's going to change a load of things too. And looking at this, this also means a lot on how we're actually building AI products and digital devices. I actually looked at kind of the European trust ratio here, and what I found interesting, Spain here, for example, Norway, you're actually the highest rated when it comes to trust. So you have the most trust from a European perspective in AI. We have countries like Germany with 48% and Finland with 41% that are way lower when it comes to trust. But still, kind of compared on an international level with India at 83% and China at 78%, this still means there's a large portion of society and many businesses that are very mistrusting when it comes to AI. And I'm realizing that actually on a daily basis now when we're rolling out AI products within companies, because many are very proud and saying, look, which tool we created here, this is going to be fun rolling this out. And then we speak 2 months later, and it usually turns out that a large proportion of the teams have never worked with this tool and are actually boycotting it to a great extent. So we're seeing that it's a large part of also change management, trying to communicate that everyone is very safe using this tool, nothing can go wrong, we're not making you redundant. That goes with rolling out these tools within own processes, but also when it comes to kind of, when it comes to your clients, this also means that you have to give a level of transparency of how AI has actually come to the conclusions it's come to. So I have to rush a bit, but let me quickly kind of touch on this, because I really believe that trust can kind of become a central part of European culture and can actually, because we're always kind of, there's so many kind of US companies, Chinese companies that come to mind when we think about AI, we often neglect how much is actually happening here in Europe. Just before, I learned that here in Barcelona, there's actually 17 of 20 medtech companies that are kind of the highest rated, that are the most promising, are coming from this area. So this is actually, and I'm learning these stories everywhere I'm going, that there's so many kind of European champions that we're just not marketing enough about. But here's kind of 3 points that I'm seeing, kind of talking to a lot of innovators in Europe. One is there's huge demand for sovereign AI. So I talked earlier that I'm speaking with lots of the kind of the European Fortune 500 companies, and one thing that they're touching on heavily now is kind of which European companies can we work with that are helping us making sure that our data will stay here in Europe no matter what's happening globally. So this is kind of a huge moat that European companies have. The second one, and the example of MedTech is showing this from here, we're hugely strong when it comes to vertical SaaS. And I just came back from Silicon Valley actually three weeks ago, and all investors were telling me, hey, this is actually the field we want to invest in. We're not so interested anymore about all the kind of the products and basically wrappers that are building very generalized on top of large language models, like the next chatbot or presentation tool or whatever that's kind of towards a generalized audience. We're interested in problems that are niche and that are helping solving niche problems. And that's where vertical SaaS is coming in, where Europe is very strong because we have all this established industry that is looking at, okay, how can we actually transform? And the last point that I'm seeing is that there's a huge shift now of innovators looking at how can we not only solve a problem with a tool. So for example, when you look at your bookkeeping, you'll have plenty of tools that you're using to do your bookkeeping, but actually how can we give this out as more of a service as a software, as we often call it. So basically the idea that AI agents are solving the entire problem and you just have to prompt your bot to do all this. So sending out the next tax reform, for example, that could be the next step of doing this in just kind of one prompt, and everything will be done behind the scenes. So I will kind of take one more minute, if that's fine. So closing kind of with how can you get started and what are kind of the problems that I'm seeing right now in many of the strategies that companies are using when it comes to AI. Usually the table looks very similar in every company you look into. Everyone now has kind of an AI strategy and has said, okay, we're making this a priority. Below this, you kind of have all these use cases in different function areas like marketing, supply chain, HR, operations, name it. But this house is built on very kind of unstable feet, basically, on a very unstable foundation. So what you have to invest in to really drive all of these use cases is, on the one hand, into your operating model. Because IT that might build your AI solution will never know what marketing actually has as problems. So you will have to think about how can we collaborate within a company crossing silos. So IT cannot just work with IT, marketing cannot work only with IT. So how do we make this collaboration possible within a company so that marketing, IT find each other and learn how to solve problems that you're having within your processes? Organizational readiness is the second part. I was speaking about the aspect of safety, psychological safety earlier. So we're seeing that a lot of team members, they don't feel safe using these tools. They have all these things to keep in mind, right? What they might be able to put into this chatbot, what they might not, what could go wrong. They don't have the skills, they feel insecure in actually prompting and do not know how to actually use these tools. All these things kind of play out if you can actually use this and make value out of it. When you talk about AI, you always have to talk about data. So I'm seeing in many companies that with any use case you touch, you're looking into which data do I actually have to build this use case. You're cleaning this data, you're structuring it, and this process is happening over and over again. So think about how can you actually start from now to make this data available within a platform for any use case you're actually working on, so that you can reuse the data you're kind of investing time and money in, and cleaning and organizing to reuse it for any use case that's coming. And the fourth thing, I'm also seeing that there's a lot of kind of consolidating vendor decisions that have to be made, right? On which cloud are you going live? Which platforms are you using? AI is really an ecosystem game. So you won't be able to do this by yourself. You will have to think about build or buy decisions. There's a lot of products, especially also from European startups, I want to point that out, on the market that you can actually use. So think about that. What do you want to build? What don't you want to build? And on which platforms are you going live, so that you don't have kind of a huge ecosystem spread throughout your company and don't actually know which vendors you're actually building on. And these are kind of the 4 pillars that I'm seeing where companies are now kind of slowly becoming successful in scaling AI, so that we're not continuously stuck in kind of a pilot spiral. And that's where I would like to close, and I'm really looking forward to your questions. I'm sure you have loads of them, so feel free to ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa. It was super inspiring. I thought you really mapped some elements that are really interesting. I was just starting when you initially face like the speed of change, which is something that we sometimes think, which are the pros and cons, was leaving behind. Afterwards, how AI is surpassing human capabilities, which is also something that can frighten us, but also helps us in so many things. But then you touch a topic that I would like to share with our guests in the next table, which is the trust, and how we can just bring that into our corporations when trust is in the middle of the equation. And finally, this kind of orchestration that you were talking about, I think it's super interesting. Well, it's not me who has lots of questions. There is a human agent, not an AI agent, who just picks some of the questions and share them. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just bring some of them. We've got tons. Tinc moltíssimes, però intentaré triar-ne algunes. We'll try to just focus on 3, 4, and then if not, we'll swap to some fast, quick, and answer questions. So the first question we gathered from the audience was, can really era bleed AI while keeping our current, it says privacy regulation, I would say even regulation, like the AI regulation.
The AI Act also,
exactly.
that came up. So I really believe that this could be a huge strength also, because what we always forget, and the US is actually a good example, where you have a lot of fragmentation actually within the entire landscape. So with AI, with the AI regulation now, at least we have kind of a European regulation that is going to give us guidelines throughout the European Union. So I think this could be a strength, because there are parts of AI that we do not want here in a European context. So social scoring is, for example, one thing that we're seeing kind of in China, where Europeans have decided we do not want this here. So we're going to kind of say this is banned, and no one can kind of come here with a solution that goes in that direction. So there are high-risk cases of AI. It is a tool that can be used for bad things, so I think it's good that we actually said, okay, here's the red line, and we're not going to step over this. I'm also seeing that, so kind of on the topic of privacy, that there's a lot of innovators coming up with good solutions to actually tackle this, because that we do not want to use our data and personal data, especially for a lot of AI applications, is, in my experience, it's a good thing also, right? We're just saying, okay, what do we want to do? Where do we want to keep privacy? One example that I love is with a company I work very closely with in Berlin. It's also a startup. It's called Brighter AI. And what they did, and this was very much forward kind of by regulation, is they said, okay, we have all this video content now. So for example, in in public spaces where for security reasons we might actually have cameras set up to just for the sake of it, if something happens, we can track and look at the video. But this is all video material that has to usually be blurred, right? So we know all these examples where we see, okay, the face is just being blurred, I cannot kind of say who you are and so on. And the problem with this is if you blur people's faces, or even also other video material, it becomes unusable for anything going forward. So you cannot use it for computer vision training. One of the reasons why robots, for example, are humanoid and are so good at the moment, are so skilled, is because we have this massive vast of kind of video material that we're using to train humanoid robots, because we have all this kind of video material of humans acting, and that's how humanoid robots are learning to act in a real life. So this material is also boosting innovation. But what they said, so Brighter AI, is they are going to change the face so that they cannot kind of, so it's not possible to track me as a person, but you can still say, okay, this person has kind of red hair, she's this age, she's female. So you can reuse kind of the descriptions of this, because they just changed my face to not decipher me, but to actually use it for other purposes in video context.
You mentioned startups. I invite you to stay today until lunchtime, because you'll discover some revolutionary startups. Nice. Okay, second question. It says, someone says, I manage an industrial SME, a small to medium enterprise company, and we're not using AI. It says it's not using AI. So what should be our first step?
So I do think the best step is using a product that's on the market, so not developing it yourself, to also build up the skills within this. And I do think that, like the deep research example I showed earlier, knowledge management is usually the first best step. So how to actually, instead of Googling and researching by using Google, right? How can you use something similar to ChatGPT? Many companies have built kind of their own MyGPT, so that everything you're typing in stays in your environment. And there's a lot of tools out there that enable you to kind of to ensure that all the data you're giving in is staying in your environment. And I think this is the best step to go. So retrieving information in a much shorter, cleverer way, but making sure that your employees cannot do anything wrong when it comes to your IP, and that's why it has to be in your environment.
I think that we'll need to talk further on this on the coffee time with everyone, but let me ask you 3 questions. I'm going to go with 3 short questions, short answers, so that we've got time for the rest. First, what is the skill you think AI will never get? You're talking about human surpassing, so is there any?
Yeah. It has to be short.
Wow, Cann, go to mill. The next 2 we do short.
Okay, so I do think what makes us human is kind of human interaction. And I want to say one statistic, because I found that really interesting and inspiring, by an evolutionary scientist who looks at brain scans. And there's a lot of people out there now that said they fell in love with an AI. Actually, what happens in your brain is that it does not match in any way what you experience as in terms of love, even if it's kind of love towards a stranger human. So you still want to have kind of for example, in the health atmosphere where you're focusing on getting healthy, for example, you want human doctors that take the time to explain to you what's important, right? So everything where we want to sell, or where we want to kind of be interacting with humans, that I think is where humans are going to be
super short ones. We've got 2 really short. Because if not, I mean, these people are going to hate me. And we've got so many. I mean, I can see here Pere, another David, Gonzalo, Marta. You can just ask her with the coffee. So the 2 quick questions. One David here says, David from Optimum, do you think quantum computing will be the next revolution? How do you expect it will impact us? I think it's a yes or no question.
So it won't be the next. I
think can have a coffee with you.
Robotic will be the next, but it will change a lot. So quantum computing will just make AI much more powerful. So yes, it will definitely be a revolution.
Great, that's a great answer. And last, you've worked with teams from US and China. What should Europeans learn from them? It can be a word. 2.
What I love about Chinese people is kind of they are very kind of how would you say that? They're very open towards next technologies. They get excited, and I think this excitement is what we should bring to Europe.
That's interesting. Yeah. Great. And my last question was: the PowerPoint presentation, the keynote, done by AI, or you did it?
I did it.
It was great. Thank you very much, Vanessa Cann.
Thank you.
Thank you.